Alright, I have a new handheld sent to me from timexplayer.com, and I was curious about this, and so I decided to do a review. The opinions I express in this video are my own. Here are the specs, and this is there's going to be an unaffiliated link to the website that offers this. I'm not here to talk about whether this is right or wrong. It does have the option to have a bunch of games on it. You play the way you want, and I'm here just to talk about what this can do. And this might be an option for people in the comments. Let me know. And so it has a mini HDMI out, and does not come with a charging cable or anything. Comes with instructions in both English and other, and so you can check this out. More information on the website. Here we go. Gonna jump into this. It doesn't come with any charging cable, but it takes a USB-C. It also takes Bluetooth, has Wi-Fi capabilities. It pretty much looks like a Game Boy SP. Doesn't take any cartridges. Essentially, it's Linux based, and essentially plays a bunch of different retro gaming platforms, and it emulates games and able to take a micro SD card. The option to include one with games included. It comes with a screen protector, nice weight to it, nice size, different color options. And so let's jump in. I'm going to use a mini HDMI cable, which is not included, to show how this looks when you plug it into and display it on a monitor or TV of your choice. Here are the different platforms and things that are offered on this device. Lots of different things, and some it plays well, others not so much. I'm going to do my best to try to cover a multitude of different things. I'm not going to mess around with the different settings. I'm just going to kind of show the default. How does it play? As I think many people are just going to want to plug and play handheld device. I will show the screen a little bit later as well. So lots of different things on this, and a multitude of different retro gaming platforms that it emulates, and arcade. And it might be a device where you can maybe want to discover something and find out more information about a particular game that is out of print. You know, a large portion of these games that are included are out of print. You can't purchase them on any market for the majority. And so I've shown these devices on my channel before, a lot of emulation devices, and they are popular videos. So I decided to move forward and show this, as I know people are curious about it, as was I. It's about $100. This device is about $100. It does offer some more current retro. Dreamcast comes to mind. There's only, about a dozen Dreamcast games on this. Soul Calibur, not running 100%, and there is a little bit of a audio stutter, but I think it's fully playable. So that is nice to see that. And then it has obscure stuff like this. There was a Bonk's Adventure arcade game, and so BC Kid, I think, is what it's called. But yeah, there's lots of oddities included on this handheld. There isn't a lot of redundancy, and so a lot of the games that are included, unlike some other devices that I've covered, it's more of a nice multitude of different games. Michael Jackson's Moonwalker was on the SD card that was included, and so there's lots of different arcade platforms and different types of games that this emulates, and does a pretty good job. I say for the more classic stuff, it does a good job. This is kind of the sweet spot. That 32-bit or before is what this handheld does. It does all sorts of things. Here's Master System Gauntlet, which we didn't receive here in the States. If you're curious, yes, there was a Gauntlet made for Master System in Europe, and probably offered in Brazil as well. I don't know. But here we go. And so, yeah, there's a multitude of different platforms that you can play, and for the older stuff, it runs pretty good. Here's the actual screen. I'm playing Altered Beast. This is the Game Boy Advance, and that might be the sweet spot of this device, playing those retro classic. Maybe you grew up with Game Boy Advance, and it runs awesome. I'm doing my best to show this. Sorry for the shaky screen. But yeah, Altered Beast, if you didn't know, there was a one made for Game Boy Advance, and a multitude of different games offered on each platform. And so too many to list here, but your classics are probably on it. Bubble Bobble, so this is a DS game, and you have to flip it using the shoulder buttons to from screen to screen. So that's a little weird. So for a lot of DS games that only use one screen for action, no problem. But you know, it's not perfect, but it does emulate DS games, so that's cool for people that want to navigate that or curious how, you know, what does a DS game play like. That might be an option for people. And so it also includes some classic Atari stuff, Lynx, and a multitude of different 7800 games. Here's Rygar. So, you know, for handheld stuff, fantastic. You know, this is a great option. And being a handheld, I don't know how long the battery lasts. Didn't test the battery. But yeah, it has a built-in battery. And so you're going to have to provide all the charging cables and all that. So here's 7800. Nice to see that as well. Kind of a forgotten Atari platform. This is Robotron 2084 on the Atari 7800. And I could see possibly some developers of homebrew and aftermarket games using this device to test their homebrew game. You can add games to it. It comes with a USB you can plug into your computer, add ROMs, and install them to the SD card. So makes it pretty convenient and easy. Here is Ghouls and Ghosts, one of my favorite Sega Genesis games, and it's running this type of stuff fine. Here's the second Shinobi game for Game Gear. So, you know, for people that, you know, surpassed the Game Gear or didn't play it because of the terrible screen, or don't want to mess with an expensive screen mod for your Game Gear, not wanting to play on original hardware, this might be an option just to check things out and play a variety of different games. It really has a lot of obscure arcade games. This is UFO Robo Dangar, and this is a childhood memory for me playing in the arcades. Local arcade had this in my hometown, and so pretty awesome to see this. And it's part of the Crusta series, if you didn't know. I really wish there was a home port of this. There's not. It's one of those obscure arcade games that just never came to any computer or console that I know of. All right, let's talk about the elephant in the room, N64. There's like 7 or 8 N64 games. There's several Maddens. There is Mario 64 on this. And I wanted to show just Madden 2002, and it's running terribly. It stutters. There's frame skips. It's just not, to me, it's not playable. So this is an example. It just can't emulate N64. Well, I could mess with the settings maybe, and maybe make it run better, but that's what you're going to get out of the box without fuddling with the options. Now, Neo Geo games, it's Metal Slug 3, running great. You know, that's the type of stuff that this handheld does well. So it does things great, and it does things that are not probably ideal. And that's just kind of the state of emulation with these like $100 devices. There's many things that they do well and great, but we're just not there yet to do fully like 3D games. There's Gals Fighters for Neo Geo Pocket Color. This is kind of the sweet spot for this device. This retro, you know, maybe you grew up with, you know, late 90s, mid 90s, or before. Plays all that stuff fine. And for the obscure hardware that's expensive or out of print or otherwise, you know, limited run things that come out that are, you know, sneezed out and then already out of print, this is an option. All right, Pac-Man Championship Edition. This is on PlayStation P. So it has a PlayStation P emulator, playing pretty good. You know, and it has a lot of mini games of the PSP on there. There's not many full PlayStation portable games, but there is a few included on at least the SD card. And for stuff like this, that's what it's going to be run well. So I try to show the frame rate on this, and so it's 50 to 60 frames a second. And so PlayStation Portable, it's running pretty good, not 100%, but definitely more playable than N64. Then it has stuff like Open Beats of Rage, which are a multitude of different like brawlers, and so it's a whole engine that you can kind of make your own things. Pretty awesome here. And I haven't played this game in particular, so just one of the many things. Now PlayStation for the most part's good. I needed to check more games, but games like Strider 2 didn't have, I think, all the audio, but there was some other games that did. So I was curious about that, because sometimes these emulation devices, not all the audio is included. I don't know why that was quiet. But then you had Twisted Metal 2, which wasn't had all the audio that I know of. And so that's a timeless classic, a game that I grew up with. It seems to be running pretty good. So that 32-bit era stuff and before, no problem. I wanted to show different systems and games. Here's Ninja Gaiden. You know, for 20 years, emulation devices seem to be running Nintendo stuff pretty good. So this is another difficult game that I enjoy going back and playing. One of my favorites for the NES. And maybe you just want to sample, hey, experience games. Hey, what was that about? And you want to check things out. And maybe this is to help you retro collect, or maybe this is your retro collecting. Now here's the Ninja Gaiden on PC Engine, and it's kind of cool to see. As I'm sure there's a lot of people that, you know, don't want to collect and they just want to play a game. This might be an option. You know, for a lot of people out there, emulation is the way to go. And maybe you're emulating on your Steam Deck or your PC, or you're considering a device like this. I know a lot of people are gaming different ways, and you do you. I'm not here to tell you how to retro, as you know, there's lots of different options on the market. It does do Saturn. I wanted to show kind of the frame rates and kind of how it runs natively on this device. It runs okay. It's for me, it's tough because, you know, I played this on original hardware, and, you know, on original hardware, this game runs super smooth. So on this, it's not running great, and it's kind of tough to see. So, but then you go back to stuff like this, Super Nintendo, very expensive game, R-Type 3, fantastic. This is kind of what you're going to get this device for. All that 16, 32-bit, and before, perfect. When you get kind of to Saturn, N64, PlayStation Portable, Dreamcast, it's kind of hit and miss. So yeah, that's what I think of it. Overall, I think for $100, you could do much worse. And maybe you're picking it up to get play obscure stuff, such as Wonderswan and Wonderswan Color. And in the comments below, how do you game? What are you emulating, and what are you playing currently in the comments? Thank you so much. More information, you can follow the link. And thank you so much for viewing this video. If you like what you see, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button, and clicking the bell helps me so much. You folks are wonderful and beautiful. Let's keep it positive. This is the immortal John Hancock, and you take care.